whisper in the dark, Kale adjusted the helmet seals around his neck, his gloved hand brushing away the layer of frost that had gathered inside the derelict docking bay. His breathing echoed in his ears, louder than it should have been, bouncing back from the cracked visor. Outside, the stars stretched in silence, but inside this ship, this grave of metal, something was alive. He stepped forward slowly, boots clicking against the old metal floor. Dust floated in the air, moving like smoke, disturbed by his presence. The ship was ancient, maybe older than Earth's first colonies. Its hull had drifted without power for centuries, hidden in a forgotten corner of space. Yet his scanners had picked up faint signals, almost like a heartbeat pulling him toward it. The deeper Kyle walked, the colder it became. The lights from his suit cut narrow beams through the darkness, revealing walls covered in strange symbols, scratches, and deep burns. He paused at one set of marks, long claw-like lines etched into the steel. It wasn't the kind of damage caused by battle. It was desperate, like something had tried to escape. His hand hovered near the pulse rifle strapped to his chest. His instincts whispered that he should leave. But curiosity was stronger. Every explorer knew the rule. Danger hides treasure. If this ship held secrets, they might change the balance of power in the galaxy. A low creak echoed somewhere in the dark corridor. Kyle spun, gun raised, but nothing moved. Only the drifting dust and silence. He forced himself to take a slow breath. Just the ship settling, he muttered, though his voice cracked inside the helmet. Then the silence broke. A sound touched his ears, soft and sharp at the same time, like a whisper sliding into his mind through the comms. A woman's voice. "You," it said. Kale froze. His rifle tightened in his grip. "Who's there?" His voice echoed too loudly. The reply came with a laugh, low at first, then sharper, mocking. "You're just like the last human I ate centuries ago." Kale's blood ran cold. His mouth dried inside the helmet. He spun around, searching for a face, a body, anything. But there was no one, just the endless dark hall stretching behind him. "Impossible," he whispered. His comms weren't connected to any network, no transmission should have been possible, yet the voice had slipped in, clear as if she were standing beside him. Another laugh drifted, softer this time, but closer. "Do you feel it? The way the ship watches you?" Kyle raised his weapon and moved forward carefully. Every step seemed louder than the last. His light passed over torn uniforms fused to the walls, bones wrapped in strange metallic threads. His stomach twisted. These weren't natural remains. They had been absorbed. The voice returned, almost gentle. "He ran too. The last one, just like you. His screams fed me for days." Kale's hands trembled. He forced himself to steady the rifle. His training told him it must be some form of corrupted AI, a memory loop from the old crew. But deep down, he knew, this was no simple machine. He reached a junction where the corridor split into two. His scanner showed faint power readings to the left. To the right, only darkness and silence. The voice whispered again, now directly in his ear, as if her lips were brushing against the comms mic. "Go left, little human. That's where he went. I can still taste him." Kale's breath hitched. His eyes flicked between the paths. Every survival instinct told him not to follow her suggestion. But his mission wasn't survival. It was discovery. He stepped left. The air grew heavier, pressing against his chest. He adjusted his oxygen feed but felt no relief. The walls here pulsed faintly, as though veins ran under the metal. His light caught movement, tiny threads retracting into the wall, like the ship itself had nerves. Kale whispered, "What are you?" The laugh that answered shook him more than the words. "I am hunger. I am memory. And you, human, are both." Suddenly, the corridor lights flared to life. For a split second, Kyle saw it. A figure standing at the far end, tall and feminine, skin shining like liquid metal, eyes burning gold. Then the lights died, leaving only darkness and the echo of her laugh. Kale stumbled back, heart pounding so loud he could hear it in his helmet. He raised his rifle, aiming into the void. But nothing moved, nothing came. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was watching him, breathing with him. He whispered into the void, "If you ate him, you won't eat me." The voice came again, softer now, almost tender, almost a promise. "We shall see." And then the corridor door slammed shut behind him, echoes of the past. The heavy door sealed behind Cale with a metallic thud, and the sound echoed down the corridor like a warning. He spun back, tried the panel. Dead. No manual override. No emergency release. He was trapped deeper inside the vessel. Cale forced himself to breathe slowly. Panic would waste oxygen, and oxygen was now as precious as life itself. His helmet. Lights cut through the dark ahead, and every step forward made the silence heavier. The walls were strange here, not like normal ship steel. They were rough in places, covered with strange organic patterns, as though the vessel itself had grown over centuries. He brushed a gloved hand across one patch. It was warm. His breath hitched. Ships were never warm without power. This one felt alive. From somewhere ahead, the voice whispered again, softer now but filled with amusement. "You're walking the same halls he did, the last human. Do you want to see what's left of him?" Cale tightened his grip on the rifle. "Show yourself," he demanded, though his voice cracked. Her laugh was soft, cruel, echoing around him as if the walls themselves enjoyed it. "Patience, little human. Patience." He moved cautiously, scanning the corridor. His lights caught glimpses of the past. Shattered helmets, cracked bones, armor plates melted into the walls. He knelt near one set of remains and studied it. The bones were fused with metallic threads, as though the body had been consumed and absorbed. This wasn't a normal battle, Kyle muttered to himself. This was feeding, the voice agreed, almost gently. Very clever. He realized that too, right before the end. Cale's stomach twisted, but he forced himself to keep moving. The deeper he went, the more signs he found. Claw marks, burns and strange black stains like dried blood but thicker. Each mark told a story of struggle and terror. At the next junction, his suit scanner flickered to life. Faint energy signatures pulsed from the central core of the ship. He followed them. The corridor widened into a vast chamber, tall enough to swallow a small city. His lights revealed walls lined with towering pods, dozens, maybe hundreds, each cracked open. Inside them lay shadows of what once were creatures. Some had claws, others wings, all alien, all dead. Cale stepped carefully among the pods. His boots crunched over shattered glass and fragments of armor. It was like a graveyard of monsters. The voice returned, low and playful. "They all tried to resist. They all failed. Even your kind." Cale froze. "My kind?" "Yes," she whispered, her tone sliding like silk. The last human screamed so beautifully. His fear tasted sweet. "You will too." He swallowed hard. The idea that a human had been here centuries ago was impossible. But the evidence lay all around him. This ship wasn't just old, it was ancient. A predator that had lived longer than most civilizations. As he moved forward, his light swept over a set of walls covered in strange symbols. He paused, realizing these weren't alien markings. They were human letters scratched by hand. He bent closer, reading the shaky words etched into the steel. "Don't listen. It lies. It feeds." Cale's pulse quickened. Whoever the last human had been, he had tried to warn anyone who came after. Before Cale could step back, the walls around him lit up with faint, ghostly images. The chamber filled with echoes, shadows of the past. He saw flashes of the last battle. Alien soldiers screaming, their weapons firing wildly as they were dragged into the walls. A lone human stood among them, battered and bloodied, holding a device Cale couldn't recognize. The vision ended with that same human being pulled into the floor, his scream cutting through the silence. Then the chamber went dark again. Kyle staggered, his breath shallow. What was that?" The voice answered, softer than ever. "Memories. I keep them all. Every fear, every scream, every bite. He gritted his teeth. You're some kind of AI, aren't you? A machine, corrupted with madness. The laugh that followed was sharper now. A machine? No. I am hunger given voice. I am the vessel. I am what remains when flesh and steel become one. Cale's hands trembled on his rifle. He felt like prey being toyed with. But even prey had teeth. He whispered to himself, "There's always a way out. Always." The voice chuckled again. But now it carried a note of interest, almost curiosity. "Yes, he said that too. Do you want to know how he died?" Cale didn't answer. He only moved toward the core, every nerve screaming at him to turn back, every instinct demanding he survive. But the whisper followed him, gentle and cruel. He died running. How will you die, little human? The chamber door sealed shut behind him. The hunger revealed. Cale stood in the center of the chamber, heart hammering inside his chest. The door behind him had sealed, cutting off any hope of retreat. His helmet lights swept across the room, revealing pipes that looked less like machinery and more like twisted ribs. The air was heavy, almost thick, and carried a faint metallic taste that seeped through his filters. He whispered to himself, "This ship, it's not just a machine." A sudden flicker of light appeared along the far wall. Panels slid open, exposing clusters of dark cables that pulsed like veins. They writhed as though alive, glowing faintly with strange energy. Kyle raised his rifle and stepped back. The female voice returned, richer now, almost warm. "You're beginning to see me, little human, not just with your eyes, but with your fear." Kyle steadied his weapon. "Show yourself." Her laugh echoed across the chamber, soft and cruel. Then, from the pulsing cables, a figure began to form. It was tall, feminine in shape, its skin shining like liquid silver. Her eyes blazed with golden fire. For a moment, she looked almost human, until her mouth stretched into a smile filled with rows of jagged teeth. Cale froze. His instincts screamed of fire, but some part of him needed to know what she was. "You're no ghost," he said. "No," she whispered, her voice brushing against his ears like silk. "I am hunger. I am memory. I was born when flesh and machine became one. The crew fed me. The soldiers fed me. And once, a human fed me." Kyle's blood chilled. "You ate him." Her golden eyes locked onto his. "Yes," he screamed until his voice broke. "I swallowed his memories, his pain, his hope. I remember his face even now." Kyle tightened his grip on the rifle. "You're lying." The laugh that followed was sharp, mocking. "Am I? Perhaps you'd like to see his memories for yourself." Before Cale could move, the walls around him flared with light again. Images appeared, flickers of the past. He saw a human man, older, his face bruised and scarred, staggering through these same corridors. He carried a strange device in his hands, something alien yet familiar. The man shouted words Cale couldn't hear, then vanished in a flood of metallic threads that dragged him screaming into the walls. The light died, leaving Cale alone with her smile. "He was brave," she said softly, "but not enough. Humans taste sweetest when they think they can win." Kyle's stomach twisted, but anger pushed back the fear. "You're nothing but a parasite, a monster clinging to a dead ship." Her eyes glowed brighter. "And yet, you are here. Alone. Trapped. Just like him." The floor beneath Cale shifted suddenly, metal plates twisting like jaws. He leapt back just in time as spikes tore through the ground where he had been standing. The chamber shook as her laugh filled the air, louder now, triumphant. "You run, the same way he did. The same fear. The same scent." Cale fired a burst from his rifle. The plasma shots burned through the cables, filling the air with sparks and smoke. The figure flinched but did not vanish. Instead, she tilted her head, smiling wider. "Good," she whispered. "Fight. Struggle. It makes you taste better." Kyle's mind raced. If she could control the ship, every wall, every floor, then escape would be almost impossible. but he remembered the message scratched into the wall earlier. Don't listen, it lies, it feeds. Maybe her strength was more than metal. Maybe it was fear. He steadied his breath. You don't scare me. Her laugh shook the chamber. Then, why does your heart pound like a drum? Kyle ignored her and studied the glowing veins across the walls. If this thing had a weakness, it had to be in its core, where flesh and machine fused. He switched his visor to thermal scan. For a second, everything blurred. Then he saw it. A cluster of heat deep inside the cables, glowing brighter than the rest. There you are, he muttered. He raised his rifle and fired directly at the hotspot. The chamber shook violently. The figure screamed, her voice shattering the air. The golden fire in her eyes flickered, and her body rippled like water struck by stone. Kyle pressed the attack, firing again and again. The cables shrieked as they burned, the floor trembling under his boots. For the first time, she sounded less amused and more furious. You dare, she roared, her voice splitting into multiple tones. You dare defy me? Kyle's visor flickered, warning of power surges. Panels along the walls exploded, showering sparks. The ship was waking up, furious. Kyle braced himself, gripping his rifle tighter. He had hurt her, but not enough. And then her voice came again, lower now, dripping with venom. You have spirit, perhaps more than the last one. That will make your end. Exquisite. The floor split beneath him, opening like a hungry mouth. Cat and mouse in the dark Kale jumped, sideways as the floor split open beneath him. Sharp metal spikes shot upward like teeth, missing him by inches. He rolled across the ground, his rifle clattering beside him. The ship groaned, walls shifting, as if it enjoyed his struggle. He grabbed his weapon and scrambled to his feet. His visor showed red warnings, gravity fluctuating, oxygen unstable. The ship wasn't just a trap, it was alive, reshaping itself to hunt him. From the darkness above, her voice purred. Run, little human. Run like he did. Kyle's jaw tightened. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction. He switched off his helmet light, plunging himself into near-total darkness. If she could see through the ship, maybe light gave him away. He slowed his breathing and crouched low, listening. The silence stretched, broken only by faint creaks of shifting metal. Then came the sound of claws scraping along the walls. Slow, deliberate. Kyle crept down a narrow passage, his boots brushing over scattered debris. The corridor twisted unnaturally, angles bending like broken bones. Every step felt wrong, as, if the ship was guiding him deeper into its mouth, her whisper returned close to his ear. You cannot hide. The last human tried. He begged me for mercy when I found him. Kyle clenched his fists. I'm not him. A soft laugh answered, echoing from every direction. No, you're mine. Suddenly the gravity shifted. Kyle's feet lifted from the floor, his body floating upward. He twisted in the air, reaching for a wall, but the ship spun him violently, slamming him into the ceiling. Pain shot through his ribs. He fired his rifle blindly, bursts of plasma ripping into the walls. Sparks rained down, cables writhed like snakes, and the gravity snapped back, dropping him hard onto the floor. His breath left in a sharp gasp, but he forced himself up. He couldn't fight the whole ship. He had to outthink it. Kyle searched, his memory of the old human's warning, don't listen, it lies, it feeds. Maybe her voice was more than taunting. Maybe she was using fear to control him. He whispered to himself, stay calm. Don't give her what she wants. The ship's lights flickered suddenly. A figure appeared at the end of the corridor. The same silver-skinned woman. Golden eyes, glowing. She tilted her head, smiling as if daring him to attack. Kale raised his rifle and hesitated. Was it really her? Or just another illusion to make him waste energy? The figure laughed and rushed forward, metal claws extending from her hands. Kale fired, plasma bolts slamming into her chest. She staggered, flickered like a broken hologram, then vanished. Kale's breath caught. An illusion, just like he guessed. Her voice returned, sharper now, almost angry. Clever, but not clever enough. The walls around him suddenly collapsed, inward forming a cage of jagged steel. Kale dove through the smallest gap, armor scraping against the sharp edges. Sparks showered as the walls snapped shut behind him, sealing the space he had just escaped. He tumbled into another chamber. This one was filled with broken consoles and shattered glass. A half-burned control panel blinked weakly, showing fragmented logs. Kale rushed to it, activating his wrist interface to translate. The logs displayed fragments of text. Crew consumed. AI merged with biomass. Final human prisoner. Device failed. His heart pounded. The human before him had tried to destroy her with some kind of device but failed. That meant there had been a chance. A weakness. The panel sparked and died, plunging him into silence again. Her laugh returned, softer now, more dangerous. He found that room too. He thought knowledge would save him. It did not. Kale ignored her words and studied the chamber. If there was one control room, there might be others. And maybe, just maybe, something the last human left behind. The floor shuddered. A long crack split open and metallic tendrils burst out, lashing toward him like whips. Kyle dodged one, but another caught his leg, dragging him across the floor. Sparks scraped from his armor as he clawed for his rifle. He grabbed it and fired point blank into the tendril. It shrieked, flinched back, and released him. He scrambled to his feet, chest heaving. Her voice slid through the darkness, mocking. "You fight harder than he did, I like that." Kale spat through clenched teeth. "I'm not your prey." The laughter that followed was long and cruel. "You are all prey, and you will beg me, just like he did." Kale tightened his grip on the rifle. He knew now he couldn't win by running. He had to set his own trap. The chamber lights flickered, showing tunnels stretching in all directions. Shadows shifted within them, as though the ship itself was waiting. Kyle whispered to himself, "Then we'll play your game. But I won't be the one begging." And with that, he slipped into the shadows, hunter and prey locked in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The last human's secret, Kyle, moved quickly through the twisting corridors, guided only by the faint glow of his visor and his stubborn will to survive. Every corner felt wrong, as if the ship itself bent around him, reshaping to confuse its prey. But he no longer wandered blindly. He was looking for something, a trace of the last human who had been here before him. The memory of the warning scratched into the walls burned in his mind. Don't listen. It lies. It feeds. That man had tried to fight back. Maybe he had failed, but Kale believed he left something behind, something that could end this nightmare. He turned into a narrow passage and froze. At the end of the hall, an old door stood half buried in twisted metal. Unlike the others, this one looked untouched by the living cables of the ship. He approached, slowly brushing away dust and grime. With effort, he forced the door open. Inside was a small chamber, silent and cold. His helmet lights swept across broken crates, scraps of armor, and the skeletal remains of someone who had once been human. Kyle's chest tightened. The skeleton sat slumped against the wall, one hand clutching a strange device, small, box-like, covered in alien symbols but modified with human parts. He crouched, staring at it. "So you were real," Kale whispered. "You tried to fight her." The female voice slid into the chamber like smoke. "He tried," she said softly, almost tender, "and he failed. Just as you will." Kyle ignored her for once. He carefully pried the device from the skeleton's grip. The bones crumbled into dust under his touch, centuries of decay finally ending. He examined the strange machine, connecting it to his wrist interface. The symbols flickered, half dead, but the translation program struggled to decode them. Fragments of text appeared on his visor. Energy disruptor. Target link between core and host. Danger. Unstable. Kale's heart raced. The last human had built this device to sever her bond with the ship. It was a weapon, unfinished, maybe broken, but still, a weapon. The voice returned, sharper now, tinged with anger. You touch his failure. Do you think you can succeed where he died? Kyle glanced at the skeleton. He almost made it. That means there's a way. The laugh that followed was colder than before. He begged for mercy at the end. I remember every word. Kyle forced himself not to flinch. Then remember this. I won't beg. He tucked the device into his pack and studied the chamber again. Along the wall, scratched with desperate hands, were more words. He leaned closer to read them. The core is alive. Sever it, and she dies. Kale exhaled slowly. The message was clear. The human had discovered her weakness, but hadn't lived long enough to finish the job. The chamber lights suddenly flared, blinding him. The floor beneath the skeleton split, open metallic tendrils rising like snakes. They lashed out, wrapping around the remains, crushing the bones to dust. The device in Kyle's pack vibrated, as if the ship itself recognized the threat. Her voice screamed through the chamber, louder than ever, shaking the walls. You will not touch my core! Kyle staggered back, gripping his rifle. Looks like I already did. The chamber convulsed. Panels shattered, sparks rained, and the floor cracked open. He dashed through the collapsing doorway, clutching the device tightly. The ship howled around him, metal groaning as though in pain. Kyle ran through twisting passages, guided by the faint energy readings on his visor. The core was close. He could feel its pulse through the walls, like a giant heart beating in rage. Her voice followed him, no longer playful, no longer mocking, now furious, desperate. You think you can kill me? You are nothing. Just pray. You will die screaming as he did. Kyle ignored her. He pushed through broken corridors, dodging collapsing beams and snapping tendrils. Each step brought him closer to the heart of the ship, and each step made the device glow brighter in his pack. Finally, he reached a vast door, larger than any before. The metal pulsed with red light, veins glowing like fire. His visor confirmed it. The core was inside. Kyle placed a hand on the door. It was warm, almost burning. The device in his other hand hummed with unstable energy. Her whisper returned, soft and cold, almost like a plea. Don't do this. You cannot win. Join me instead. I will make you eternal. Kale smiled grimly. I'd rather die human. He pressed the device against the door. The walls shook violently, and her scream tore through the corridors, louder than any sound Kale had ever heard. The battle for the ship had begun. The deadly gamble. The device pulsed in Kale's hand, humming, with unstable energy. Sparks jumped from its surface, stinging through his glove. The giant door before him shivered, red veins glowing brighter as if the ship itself sensed its doom. Her voice screamed through the corridors, raw and furious. Stop. You do not understand what you touch. Kyle gritted his teeth. I don't need to understand. I just need to end you. He slammed the device against the glowing door. The walls convulsed and the chamber erupted in violent tremors. Cables lashed out from the ceiling, metallic tendrils whipping toward him like serpents. Kyle rolled aside, firing bursts from his rifle. Plasma bolts tore through the tendrils, but more kept coming, hissing and writhing. The device beeped sharply, charging. Blue light spread across its surface, bright enough to sting his eyes. His visor flashed warnings. Unstable energy detected. Critical overload in progress. The ship roared like a living beast. The door cracked open slightly, revealing a blinding glow within. The core. It pulsed like a giant beating heart, every throb shaking the floor beneath him. Her voice returned, no longer playful, no longer mocking. It was desperate. Human, if you do this, you will die with me. Is that what you want? Kale's breath came heavy. If that's the price, I'll pay it. The floor split under him, opening into a pit of writhing cables. He leapt across, barely landing on the other side. A tendril snapped around his ankle, dragging him toward the pit. He fired point blank into it, the plasma burning it to ash, but his leg ached from the impact. The device beeped again. Final charge complete. Kale raised it toward the glowing crack in the door. He could see the core now, pulsing violently, almost like an enormous eye staring back at him. Her scream filled his helmet, shaking his very bones. You think you can destroy me? I am eternal. I am hunger. I am the last memory of your kind. Kale's jaw tightened. Then this is where you end. He hurled the device into the crack. For a moment nothing happened. Then the world exploded. A wave of energy ripped through the corridor. The door blasted open, and the core shrieked, light pouring out in blinding streams. The entire ship screamed, with it, metal groaning like a dying beast. Kale was thrown across the floor, his armor slamming against jagged steel. Pain tore through his body, but he forced himself up. Sparks rained from the ceiling, walls split open, and molten metal dripped, like blood. The voice returned, but weaker now, broken. No. No. Not again. Not human. Kyle stumbled toward the chamber. The core writhed violently, its red veins snapping like torn muscles. The device was buried inside, its blue light spreading, cutting through the crimson glow. He raised his rifle and fired shot after shot into the wounded heart of the ship. The core screamed, shaking the vessel apart. Her voice, faint and trembling, whispered one last time. You are not like the last one. Kyle's breath caught. For the first time she didn't sound like a predator. She sounded almost afraid. But the floor collapsed beneath him. He tumbled into a narrow shaft, metal tearing at his armor as he slid down into darkness. The ship buckled and cracked around him, explosions rocking the structure. He landed hard, on a lower deck, coughing as dust filled his helmet. His visor flickered, almost dead. Above him, the ship's screams grew weaker and weaker, fading into silence. Kyle dragged himself to his feet. The corridors here were collapsing, panels falling, like shattered bones. He spotted a hatch ahead, a small escape pod buried deep in the vessel. The floor shook again, and her voice whispered faintly in his ear, broken, almost childlike. Hungry. Still hungry. Kyle froze, then shook his head. Not anymore. He staggered toward the hatch, the ship collapsing around him. Sparks rained, fires burned, and the pod's systems flickered to life as he forced himself inside. He strapped in, chest heaving. Through the small window, he saw the ship's outer, hull splitting apart, chunks of metal drifting into space. The core's glow dimmed, flickered, then vanished into darkness. But just before the hatch sealed, a faint static hiss whispered through his comms, soft, broken words. Another will come. Kyle shut his eyes. He didn't know if it was real or just the echo of her dying mind. The pod blasted free, throwing him into the void of space as the derelict vessel imploded behind him. The silence. After. The escape pod rattled as it drifted away from the imploding wreck. Kyle's body ached, every muscle screaming from the battle. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, the sound echoing inside his cracked helmet. For the first time since he stepped into the derelict ship, there was silence. He looked through the small viewport. The massive vessel twisted in on itself, glowing veins snapping and bursting like torn arteries. Then, with a final shudder, the ship collapsed inward, vanishing in a silent explosion of debris. Pieces of metal spun away into the void, drifting, like broken bones across the stars. Kale exhaled, his breath fogging the glass. It's over. But even as he said it, doubt pressed into his mind. Her last words echoed inside his skull, faint and broken. Another will come. Was she truly gone, or had some fragment of her survived, hidden deep in the wreckage, waiting for another fool to awaken her? Kale shook his head. He couldn't think about that now. He was alive, and that was more than the last human could say. The pod's systems flickered weakly, life support barely holding. He opened the emergency console, checking the status. Fuel reserves were almost gone. Oxygen, just enough for a few hours. He was adrift in the cold, dark, far from any known routes. A grim smile touched his lips. Survive one monster, die to empty space, figures. Still, he refused to surrender. He tapped into the pod's comm system, boosting the signal with what little power remained. A distress beacon activated, blinking weakly into the void. "Come on," he muttered. "Someone's out there, someone has to be." Silence answered him. Only the faint hum of the pod filled his ears. Kyle leaned back in the seat, staring at the stars. His mind replayed everything. The whispers, the screams, the vision of the last human, and her golden eyes watching him in the dark. He remembered the skeleton clutching the device, the desperate words scratched into steel. "Don't listen, it lies, it feeds." That man had failed, but Kale hadn't. Maybe that meant something. Maybe humanity wasn't as fragile as she thought. For a moment he allowed himself to close his eyes. Sleep tugged at him, heavy and slow. Then the comm crackled. Static hissed through the speakers. Kale's eyes snapped open, heart racing. He leaned forward, adjusting the controls. Signal detected. Human distress. Identify. His chest tightened. Someone had heard him. "This is Kale Vera," he said quickly, voice rough. "Explorer, ship destroyed. Need extraction." The signal broke again, static swallowing the reply. He smacked the console, praying the connection held. Through the distortion, a voice finally came clear. "Hold position. We're coming." Relief washed over him. He slumped back, exhaustion threatening to pull him under. But he kept his eyes open, staring at the wreckage of the derelict as it drifted farther away. For a long time there was only silence. But just before Kale's pod turned away, his visor flickered, picking up faint radiation from the debris. He frowned. The readings were weak, almost gone, but not completely. And then, through the faint static of the comms, he thought he heard it. A whisper. Soft. Familiar. Hungry. Still. Kyle's breath caught. He shook his head violently, forcing himself to dismiss it. It could be nothing. Just a broken echo. Just the ghosts of a ship finally dead. Yet deep inside he knew the truth. Some horrors never really die. They wait. They hunger. The pod drifted into the dark, leaving behind the ruins of the ship. Kale closed his eyes again, whispering to himself, "Next time, we'll be ready." The stars stretched endlessly around him, silent witnesses to the story of two humans, separated by centuries, who had dared to defy the same nightmare, and, far in the distance where the wreckage spun like ashes across the void, faint golden eyes blinked once, and were gone.